Good morning, everybody. I'm State Senator Richard Ross, Republican from Wrentham, and I'm joined by Bob Hedlund, Republican of Weymouth, in the Republican leader's office this morning as we're starting to work through the $38 billion state budget. Certainly on the minds of many is how we are going to be treating the problems that we had this winter and have pointed out many of the deficiencies in the MBTA. It's something that is common in conversation here at the State House, and trying to find ways to solve it is something that's a matter of personal preferences sometimes, and I know we're going to have some debate on that today. So Bob, if you could help me out with that, tell us a little bit about what you're concerned about.
Sure. Well, MBTA issues really have taken center stage in this year's budget debate, and as you know, after the winter that we went through, a lot of the problems at the MBTA have come to light, and Governor Baker has tried to advance a series of reforms to hopefully fix the MBTA, and many of those reforms will be put forward using this particular budget as a vehicle to advance those reforms, have debate on those reforms. As you know, the House has included some measures that we support and that the governor supports, and the Republican Senate caucus, led by Senate Minority Leader Bruce Tarr, who has done tremendous work on this issue, have tried to advance some of those reforms here in the Senate version of the budget. So we expect significant debate today and tomorrow on those, whether it be the creation of a financial control board, or suspension or outright elimination of the Pacheco law, which really hamstrings the MBTA from accomplishing some outsourcing of work that's sorely needed. We would expect lengthy debate on those two measures and a series of others in this budget.
If you could help expand on that a little bit, why is the MBTA board themselves not alone able to take care of this? Why is a control board necessary?
Well, the control board would effectively allow for more of a focus on MBTA-related issues, whereas the DOT board has under its jurisdiction all transportation-related authorities and entities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we think that the control board structure has worked in other examples, whether it be some of the areas where we've set up either a control board or actually outright receivership, places like Chelsea, Springfield, where they had significant financial problems. That structure has worked and helped right the ship in those instances. So we think that model works in this case.
I think you're right, Bob. I think, the politics that go on amongst the MBTA with their very large budget certainly precludes the DOT from being able to oversee all of those things. So I do think, like you do, that we should separate those functions and actually have a control board just for this specific purpose of getting the T back on track, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think the argument can be made. I mean, you have a new chief executive of the Commonwealth in Governor Baker. He's vowed to fix the problem. Give them the tools and let them try. And this is one of the tools that he believes that they need to really address the long-standing issues at the MBTA. And they are long-standing issues. They were really, the issues were forced to light as a result of that stress test that it's been referred to with the significant weather issues that the MBTA had to contend with. But really these have been ongoing for some time, and the legislature made an attempt in 2009 to bring some reforms to the T in other areas in our transportation system. Many of those reforms have not been actually carried out by the executive branch under the previous administration. So there's some existing tools. We want to give the governor some additional tools. And like I said, it's not going to be an easy fix. This has been a problem at the T. We see structural deficits at the T every year. We come in using the state budget or using a transportation bond bill or other vehicles to help paper over their operating deficit. Some of the management practices there, just a disaster. We see decisions made to defer capital maintenance needs and go on an unprecedented capital spending spree at the expense of existing MBTA functions. So those are kind of management issues. We hear a lot about labor and some of the problems with whether it be Carmen's union contracts or the so-called mighty Carmen's union, having political clout here in the building. And is that a problem? Yes, but some of the management problems are significant, and we hope that this administration can get a handle on some of them.
Well, it sounds like from what we're hearing that the Carmen's Union will be basically untouched by what Governor Baker is proposing in many ways. Not insulated, but untouched. I think the thing that people want to see is that we're going to have trains running on time, we're going to have infrastructure that's been improved, and the fact that so much money was left in the budget that didn't get spent last year on maintenance and other things is suggestive that we have really a management problem more than anything else.
I think there's a huge management problem, and I think to a certain degree, management has gotten a pass when the focus has been on labor issues. But the labor contracts are negotiated by management. Some of the management decisions, procurement issues, absolute disaster when it comes to procurement issues with flawed equipment. The list on that situation is endless. The executive branch in the past has interfered. A lot of capital spending decisions were made based on political considerations and not on transportation planning needs. We have examples of that, and we're probably going to have some debate in this budget on that very issue and whether or not it's appropriate to go ahead with a $2 billion capital expansion in bringing a rail line to South Coast. Even though it's not MBTA money, it's still taxpayers' money. And no one seems to be able to, the last administration nor this administration, in transportation committees hearings that I participated in, can tell us how they plan on handling the operating deficit that will come with the operation of that line, which is at least $40 million, according to the previous administration. This administration has yet to put a financial dollar amount on that. And you're taking another $40 million, adding it to the operation deficit that in this fiscal year I think is $135 million, expected to grow significantly, and that will add another $40 million to that deficit. So that's something that I know that the caucus has had interest in the past in putting a freeze on capital expansion until we get a handle on our existing deferred maintenance needs.
I think the public in general recognizes the governor for his ability to depoliticize many issues, and I really think this is one that he's willing to grab onto and keep the politics out of it. He has done a wonderful job appointing people from all sides of the aisle and all perspectives for hiring the best people on the job to be able to get the job done. Are you confident the governor will be able to solve this problem?
I think the governor has displayed throughout his career great management capabilities, whether it be in the private sector or quasi-private sector, in turning around Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. Certainly proved himself able serving in the Weld administration in a couple different capacity. But thus far he has been able to maintain his popularity, govern in a bipartisan spirit, I think build some goodwill with the legislative leadership. We hope that lasts. We know that some in the legislature and certainly in the Senate view this as a policy exercise. Others see everything through a partisan context. So you have to work with both of those kind of outlooks here, unfortunately, and hopefully we can win on the arguments and the merits of this issue, because if we can't fix the MBTA problems now in this environment, in this political climate, after what riders had to endure, we're never going to fix it. I mean, this is it. This is the chance. And, the political will probably in the legislature won't be there 2 years from now unless we have similar incidents. So, the old saying goes, strike while the iron is hot. Right now, the iron is hot.
And I think Charlie has us as a caucus understanding why a whole lot of issues that relate to the T also are things that we need to think about. I know we've been talking a lot about the 2024 Olympics and needing to have a world-class MBTA transportation system in place before we even think about hosting something as mammoth as those games. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a very good point. Olympic proponents are using the Olympic proposal as a way to suggest that it's how we fix and solve our transportation capital woes. I don't accept that premise. We should have those issues addressed regardless of whether or not we host an Olympics or not. I actually think that the Olympics will be a distraction from getting to some of the projects that we need to get done. And remember, the entire state will not be impacted by the Olympics in terms of transportation planning. And the question I would have if I were a legislator from outside of the immediate Boston area is, are the Olympics going to drain resources from projects that I would otherwise need to see happen in my district? So I think the Olympics are a distraction. I ultimately think it'll be a drain on taxpayers' dollars if we move forward with that. And there's no way that they can give a guarantee, which is why they're resisting that guarantee, that no taxpayer dollars will be used. And that's a great point and a great segue in mentioning that an amendment that I have filed, and I believe the entire caucus has co-sponsored, that would prevent the use of public dollars for the Olympic proposal here in Boston.
That's a great thing, Bob. I know many of us in the caucus have signed on to that as well because we understood, as you explained it to us, that we shouldn't be using public dollars for those things. So thanks for joining me today.
I know that you asked some very tough questions on that very issue in some committee hearings thus far, so you are to be commended for your efforts on that.
Well, thank you. I look forward to the debate today. Let's see where we go. I guess we're going in shortly. Have a good day, everybody, and know that we're up here on Beacon Hill working hard for you to make sure your tax dollars are used in the most productive and responsible way. Thank you for joining us.